after this delicious meal, if we start to meditate first, we all fall asleep. So maybe I'll do differently. So in Buddhism, one important concept that you have at all stages of the path is that everything is dependent arising. The concept of dependent arising. So today I'll speak more dependent arising on cause and effect. And tomorrow I will speak a little bit, tomorrow afternoon, a little bit the dependent arising on the prasangika view of dependent arising, which is a bit different. So this morning we spoke a little bit about karma. So it's a form of dependent arising. You see, whether we are happy or not, whether we have problems or not, it's dependent arising. It's not arising out of the blue. It depends on cause and conditions. So, the way we are in this life, it's the effect of the way we were in the previous lives. And the way we're going to be next life and the life after us depends on how we are in this life. So at this present moment, we experience the result of our previous lives while at the same time creating the cause of our next life. So this teaching, the Buddha taught in the 12th link of dependent origination. So he elaborated a bit in that teaching. So there's 12 interdependent link, right? So first is the link of ignorance, out of a mistaken perception of reality. So there again, there's different level of understanding what this ignorance is. The first level of ignorance is the ignorance that doesn't believe in cause and effect, that doesn't believe in rebirth, doesn't believe in karma. So when one speaks about ignorance, that's the first level of ignorance, right? But here in the 12th link of dependent origination, it needs at least the second level of ignorance. So believing in a self that is self-sufficient or substantially existent. So to simplify a little bit this philosophical term, basically is this sense of self we have that is more important than the body and mind. And the sense of I have, this body belongs to me, this thought belongs to me, this is my emotion, as if there were an I that is separate, independent from the body and mind. So that's the level of I, that of self that is refuted in the Vaibhashika, Sutantrika, Chittamatra, and Svatantrika view, And the Prasangika have another level, or a sense of I, the I that exists from his own side, that exists inherently. So this one, we speak about it tomorrow. So because we have this sense of I, I'm doing this, I'm going there, I think that, there's a sense of I that is more than just the body and mind. And this I then has emotion, has attraction, aversion, pride, jealousy, love, compassion, patience, and so forth. And out of those emotion, we create actions, right? So that's the second link, karma. We create action with our thought, with our speech, and with our deeds, right? Due to ignorance, we have emotion, and due to this emotion and thought, we create deeds, and these deeds leave an imprint on the mind, which is the third link, right? So our sense of I makes us have emotional thoughts. The I think, the I feel, the I does, right? And these actions then leave an imprint on the mind. So the mind is the third link, and the mind or consciousness has two parts. So there's the part of the mind that is from the side of the cause, and the part of the mind or the consciousness is the side of the effect. So the imprint that of our action can stay on the mind a very long time. Is not sure that this imprint will ripen next life or the life after. There can be quite a long time before an imprint we put on our mind ripens. And then that imprint, in order to bring about a rebirth, has to be further strengthened by our craving, our clinging, and then at the time of death, this craving and clinging to existence, to be, uh, creates the link of becoming, of existing again, of wanting to exist again, and that at the time of death, that feeling of wishing to exist again is what then pushes us to take rebirth. And then with rebirth comes, the problems of being born, having to grow up, having to make a living, having to do things, and then, aging, sickness, and death, and ending. So the root cause in terms of mental affliction is the first link, ignorance, and then craving and grasping. I don't remember which number are 7 and 8, I think. Second verse 7, 8. No, 8 and 9. So craving is 8 and clinging is 9. So the 1 and the 8 and 9, craving and clinging, are the mental afflictions. And because of that, we create deeds. So there's 2 deeds. There's the second link, karma, and then the 10th link, becoming. So becoming is a fully ripening energy that we created out of ignorance and craving and clinging. And then that creates the becoming at the time of death that produce the effect of birth and death. So birth and death, if you want to elaborate, So before birth, the mind, the mind of the affect, creates name and form. So name and form can be at the time of conception, So the form is the sperm and ovum of our parents, and name is the consciousness that's entering the sperm and ovum of the mother. The embryo knows name and form. And then six sense base, basically as the embryo grows and that the sense organ develop, so these are the six sense base. So they start being functioning, at the end of our time in our mother's womb. And then when the six senses are fully developed, it creates contact, right? So inside our mother womb, probably we have a feeling of warmth, or heat and cold and movement and so forth. So we have certain experience in our mother's womb. And then these contact produce feelings, right? So certain experience we have are pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, which are the ripening of our karma. So, for example, when I drink a delicious cup of tea, there's a feeling of pleasure, but that pleasure, I think, is caused by the tea. But actually, it's caused by the ripening of the karma, of my positive karma. Because another person could drink a cup of tea and not enjoy it at all. He prefer have a beer, Tea for him is nothing, it's not fun, So for him, it's no pleasure. So for him, the karmic cause to see tea as pleasant is not there, right? So it's the same beverage, but the experience is different. So it's another karmic ripening. So then out of feeling, you see then whatever is pleasant, we have this natural attraction, and what is unpleasant, we have this natural aversion, right? And what is pleasant, so we grasp, we hold on to, we want, and then we cling, we want to repeat that experience, right? So if you want to stop ordinary aging and death, there's no other way than to stop birth, which is its cause, Once you are born, there's no choice, but you have to grow old and die. If you don't, die before, there's no choice. Once you're born, you have to grow old and die in this dimension, this unenlightened dimension. So, and if you want to stop birth, you have to stop craving, you have to stop becoming, wanting to be born again, right? You have to stop this mind at the time of death. You see, we have this innate clinging to the self. So when you die, you have this clinging of wanting to exist again, to be born again. No. And where does that come from? It comes from this clinging, clinging to the pleasurable, clinging to be separate from the unpleasant, and so forth. And where does that come from? It comes from craving, And where does the craving come from? It comes from our feeling, sensation, I mean, when I'm hungry, it's unpleasant. And I have this feeling of unpleasantness, right? And then I have craving for food, right? And then I eat something and it's pleasant, so then I cling to repeat again that nice food experience that I had. And all this reinforces the sense of self. And when you die, you have this becoming, this wishing to exist again, no, not wanting to let go. So just having the sense of I and creating karma is not enough to produce rebirth. It has to be further strengthened by our craving and clinging. So, for example, in the Theravada tradition, they emphasize very much the thought of no need, non-attachment. So not to have any craving, any clinging to anything, right? So you let go all your clinging, like the person was describing this morning about, you know, uh, reducing the clutter in your life, right? So you try to reduce the mind that craves and clings to things, no? And thereby you don't reinforce the karmic imprint that you created. So when one speaks about karmic imprint, there are the karmic imprint that have the capacity to bring about a rebirth, and then you have the karmic imprint that brings about condition in that rebirth, right? So we call this throwing karma or completing karma, right? So there's certain imprint that are strong enough to produce a rebirth, and there's other imprints that are not strong enough to bring about a rebirth, but they are conditions then for how you experience your life within a specific rebirth. And one important fact is while, let's say this life is the result of a positive throwing karma from a previous life. Right? So it's just the result of one karma, but one has billions of imprint. So it's just the ripening of one of these billions of imprint. And while we experience the result of one karma, every day we create new thousands of new karma, right? So while one experiences the result of one creates the cause of many, many new, right? So you can never exhaust your karma, so to speak, because there are billions and billions of karma. What you can do is karma can only ripen if there's a sense of self. So if there's no more false sense of self, karma cannot ripen anymore. Right? So that's how you become free of karma. It's basically you transcend karma by there's no more ego there to experience the karmic result, right? So for karma to ripen, there has to be a sense of self. There has to be either the self-sufficient, sufficiently existent I, or the inherent existent I. Once you have removed, for example, an arhat still has plenty of karmic imprint, but they cannot ripen because he doesn't have a sense of self. So when you speak about karma, you speak about contaminated karma and uncontaminated karma. So what we spoke so far is just about contaminated karma, right? Because all our actions are done with believing a sense of self. You know, I am the doer, you know, and there's an inherent existent I, there's an inherent existent action, and there's an inherent existent other people towards whom I do these actions. So it's all contaminated by the belief in inherent existence. So now higher bodhisattva and Buddhas, they create uncontaminated karma because they don't have this false view of self, this false sense of action and this false sense of other. So they don't have inherent existence, so their actions are so-called pure. You know, they are not contaminated by this mistaken perception of reality. So for us ordinary beings, which haven't have the realization of emptiness of inherent existence, so all our actions are contaminated karma, right? So then contaminated karma, you have two types. You have the virtuous one and the non-virtuous one. So they produce happiness and suffering within cyclic existence. But none of our actions create the cause for liberation, right? None of our action create the cause for liberation as long as they are done under the control of believing in inherent existence. We only create actions that produce happiness and suffering in the will of cyclic existence, right? So virtuous action create the cause for precious human rebirth, or as deva, or as asuras. You know, these upper realm where people have very, very long life and experience incredible happiness, but they're also under the control of karma, you know, and rebirth. So when you reflect on that, the only moment where you create a cause for liberation is when you meditate on emptiness. This is the only moment where you create a cause for liberation is when you do an action out of understanding emptiness. All the rest, we just create the cause for more samsara. No? So, in a sense, there's only one door to liberation, is to realize emptiness of inherent existence. And that's valid whether you follow the sutra path or the tantric path. There's only one way to become free, is to realize emptiness. But to understand emptiness, one needs a lot of good luck, a lot of wisdom, a lot of merit, a lot of positive karma. So, and that we can create while in cyclic existence, while experiencing, contaminated happiness, creating the cause of contaminated happiness. Because in order to get the teaching on emptiness, being able to reflect on it, being able to meditate on it, being able to experience it, you need a certain conditions, right? So you need a certain good fortune, good karma in order for this to happen. So reflecting on the 12th link, you're seeing that how, because of ignorance, craving and grasping, you create action and you have this craving for existence again. And this produces the result of that new life in which again you create new karma. You know, you start seeing how it is endless, you know, how, yes, how it will never end. You know, you always create the cause for a new life, and you create, in a life, you create the cause for maybe thousands of new lives, you know, and you experience only one, and while you experience that one, you create thousands of new cause for new lives. So if you want to stop the whole circle, you have to remove the first, you have to remove the ignorance. You know, that is the starting point of this chain of reaction. So if you look it over 3 lifetimes, you see in this life you exist, you experience the result of out of ignorance, you created a cause in a previous life, and that left an imprint on the mind. And then that imprint ripened into name and form, six sense base, contact, feeling. And now we are in this situation. We have this body and we have these feelings, right? And with our 5, 6 senses, we enter into contact with the object and we have these different feelings, right? And out of these feelings, you know, we don't leave the feeling as they are. You know, for example, a person that has realized emptiness. So it was quite obvious for those which have been around Lama Zopa Rinpoche a little bit, you know. He has feelings, but he doesn't react. He has no craving, no grasping. You see? So you put him tea here, he has no craving to drink it. It is cold. He has no craving for warmth. You know, he's tired. He has no craving to lay down and sleep. You know, for those which have been around Lama Zopa Rinpoche or other master like that, you see that the way they react to event is not like an ordinary person. Because an ordinary person has no choice. You see, feeling arise, then craving for the pleasant and aversion for getting separate from the unpleasant. But Rinpoche didn't have those reactions, you know. So a person that has realized emptiness has that freedom, right? Which we sadly lack. But one can train, you know, to be less. You see, when some feeling arise, we can try to reduce our craving for the pleasant and aversion for the unpleasant. So for us, you see, we have no much choice. You see, actually, if one knows a person well, we say, we know how to push the buttons, right? So actually, if you know someone very well, you know how to dingle something in front and you know he's going to get attracted to that thing. Or you say something unpleasant and you know how to make him or her upset, isn't it? Why can we do that? Because these people don't have any choice. You know how to trigger their things, and they have this, how you say, Pavlov response. It's it's just the way it is. So that's how samsara works. So feeling arise, and then you have no choice but to be attracted to the present, or aversion to the unpleasant. And therefore, you reinforce the karma, and then at the time of death, you have this craving for existence again, this craving to repeat that. So we are in, let's say, of one karmic imprint that produced this birth, and now we reinforce that karmic imprint by our craving and clinging, and then at the time of death, we'll have this urge to exist again, and that will produce the cause of our next life, our birth next life. So the main idea of this is to realize that the whole process is endless. You can never. It's not like you create in one life one karma, and then you experience that karma, and it's finished, right? So, so you experience the result of one karma you create in the past, and in this life you don't create any more karma, so you exhausted that karma, so you finish the chain, It's not like that, While you experience, you create every day hundreds and hundreds of new karma, which all, are potential new rebirth. So if we want to stop this process of rebirth, we have to stop the first link, ignorance. So the more your mind, I think, honestly, I would say maybe most of you have a certain level of realization of emptiness without knowing it. I think you all have certain insight into emptiness. Well, you will see tomorrow. I think all of you have a certain level of insight into emptiness. But the thing is, we don't cultivate it. And we don't try to be mindful moment by moment how things exist as mere imputed by the mind. See, we think everything exists out there, independent from our mind, looking at it. Whereas things are created by our mind, labeling things. So everything is created by our mind, labeling things, labeling a base, and that's how they come into existence. But because we are lazy, we don't make that analysis moment by moment. So innately, out of ignorance, things appear to exist from our own side, independent from our mind, imputing it on a base. So I noticed in me when I'm able, the few moments I'm able, it's mostly in retreat, So I make this effort moment by moment to see everything as merely imputed by the mind. And when I'm in that state, the illusion cannot really arise, or they're very light, But then I forget, and things automatically appear existing from the outside, and then the illusion can arise. So that experience shows me that delusion can only arise as long as you believe things existing from their own side. So the weaker your apprehension of inherent existence is, the less delusion can arise. Now, yesterday, yesterday. This morning, you see, I mentioned when you see something in the present, you don't see the past and future. The past and future, you have to think with your mind. There's a mental insight that you gain by thinking about it, right? So same thing for how things exist inherently from their own side. So until we are Buddha, all our perception are wrong. All our perception, our sense consciousness sees things as existing from their own side. So the only valid consciousness you will have is your mental consciousness, understanding that things don't exist from their own side. So it's your mind that realizes emptiness, it's not your sense consciousness. And in that process, you see, you will see things as empty of existing from their own side, but then you have you can have 1% of your mind believing it as empty and 99% of your mind believing it exists from its own side. And gradually you come to the point of 50% of your mind believe it exists from its own side, and 50% of your mind believe it doesn't exist from its own side. And at that point, you start being able to make the delusion weaker. And then you reach a point where maybe 90% of your mind believe it's empty and 10% believe it exists out there. And then your delusion becomes very weak, right? And you reach a point where maybe 99% of your mind knows that it's empty of inherent existence, and only 1% of your mind believe it's existing from its own side. And then your delusions are almost gone. So it's a process of gradually understanding that things are empty and cultivating that awareness and making it stronger, that more and more part of your mind is convinced, right? And that's the process that goes from the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, till the path of no more learning. That's the graduate stage of your spiritual development, till you reach liberation or enlightenment. So it's a process. So your sense consciousness, the first point where you come at, you have to realize that your sense consciousness are always lying to you in the sense that they never show you how things really exist. There's always something wrong in our perception of things. So the world we perceive, we call it as conventional reality or superficial reality or empirical reality. everyday reality. We can use whatever term we like. So if we would look things from, if there are some scientists here or people which have studied science quite deeply, you can look at the world from the point of view of molecule or from the point of view of atomic particle, or you can look at the world from perception of quantum physics. So there's many different ways to look at reality, right? That even though your eye consciousness still sees this world with your mind because of your study, your understanding, you can see at the same time a different world, right? With your mind, you can see things. So it's exactly the same process, right? It's just instead of using the scientist understanding of atomic particle or molecule or things like that, or quantum physics, instead of using that map, you use the prasangika level of real understanding. But it's the same thing. So the eye consciousness continue to see this world, but your mental consciousness sees things differently. And the more you soak into this understanding of emptiness and dependence, more your mental affliction diminishes. So, for example, His Holiness Dalai Lama, he does this mind science conference. And often he asks scientists, so the scientists are completely immersed in this, quantum mechanics. So they explain to His Holiness with very elaborate term, their vision of reality. And then His Holiness Dalai Lama asks them, so does that reduce your mental afflictions? And then this question, what does he ask? So you see, if that helps you to reduce your mental affliction, then it's good. If your understanding of reality, of how things are, undermines your mental affliction and reduce them, then it's good. If it doesn't, then it misses the point. You see, understanding reality, understanding how things exist, is a means to an end. Is not philosophizing for the sake of philosophizing, like is sometimes in Western philosophy. So understanding how things exist ultimately is a means to an end. And the end is to end suffering. And is to end the cause of suffering, and is to reach liberation and enlightenment. So if your understanding of emptiness doesn't help you to reduce your mental affliction, then your understanding of emptiness is a little bit not yet there, right? It's a little bit not clear. Because if you understand emptiness, it should reduce your mental affliction. Otherwise, your understanding is not yet correct. So when you meditate on emptiness, you have some insight of emptiness. It should changes. It should change the way you perceive, the way you apprehend yourself. And the more you apprehend yourself as not having an inherent I, the more you see other, because other are same as you, right? So when you understand that you don't have an I, your partner, your children, your parent, everybody appear to you as not having an I, right? You see, it should have that effect, right? So you realize that I don't have I'm dependent rising, I'm merely labor. But then the person I'm living with, I must see that in them too, right? So there's merely label body, merely label mind, label I in that person. And that person is that constantly evolving phenomena, that I merely impute this and that. So emptiness or dependent rising should reduce your attachment to things, should reduce your attachment to people, should reduce all your mental afflictions. So it's the one answer to all the problems. And if it doesn't do that, it means that your understanding of emptiness is not yet correct. You haven't got it yet. So the way to go about it, you see, there's many texts, many teachings about emptiness. So to hear again and again, it can, I think there's two ways. One is you hear it so many times that you get feeling of vomiting. You heard it thousands and thousands of times, and it hasn't produced any effect. So you get completely discouraged or bored. It hasn't worked for me. I hear the same words again and again, and it doesn't bring any effect. But it says, you see, never, even if you don't understand, it leaves an imprint. And these imprint subconsciously work on your mind. And then gradually, over the years, you start understanding more and more what is actually said. I think there's also another approach, is where you stick with one object and you try to understand the emptiness of that one object. So you repeat the same reasoning again and again and again on one object. Because you see, if you understand the emptiness of one object, you understand the emptiness of all objects. Because you just need to repeat the path you follow to understand the emptiness and dependent arising of one object. You repeat that to another object and you get the same experience. So you just change the object and you repeat the same analysis and you get to that same experience. So that's why it says, if you understand the emptiness and dependent arising of one object, you understand the emptiness and dependent arising of all objects. I'm not so good at keeping time. So maybe, Mary, if you can remind me from time to time when it's taking breaks. So usually one says, the problem is that we see things as existing inherently. So it's a barbaric philosophical term that we don't use in everyday life. We don't use very often, oh, these things exist inherently. So one has actually to make some kind of mental gymnastic to think, oh, what does it mean actually something existent inherently, right? So it would be something that exists by itself that doesn't depend on cause and condition. But you will say, but nothing exists like that. It's obvious, nothing exists inherently. But then if you look at things with your eye consciousness, actually that's how things appear to us. They appear to exist inherently. Even though mentally you know they depend on cause and condition, you don't see it, right? You see things as existing from the onside, independent of cause and condition, independent of part, and in part independent from your mind imputing it. So we have to first check how we actually see things when we don't analyze, how things exist without when we start thinking, then yes, you can see the parts and you can imagine the cause and condition that produce it. But if you don't think, you just look, things exist on their own without depending on parts and without depending on cause and condition. So that's what's wrong in our perception. You see, our sense consciousness are cheating us. So I think the exercise, when you're in retreat, when you give yourself some time, train yourself, you look at something and say, oh, but, for example, I go in a new house and I think, oh, how was this house built? How is it put together? And I look at the carpet, oh, how was it built? How was the carpet made? So if you start looking at things from like, oh, already your understanding of the phenomenon is more close to reality than our normal way of looking, because things depend on cause and condition to arise. So if you you start looking at the cause, the parts that made the house, your understanding of the way you see your house is closer to reality, and that will lead you to the understanding of how things exist, mainly imputed by the mind. So I enjoy that. You see, I travel on the road and I imagine the guys that build the road, the worker, the guy that drove first, the map and then how they made the road, or you look at the car, how the car was made. So you can take the habit of whatever you see it in this aspect of how that thing arise. You see a tree, and the tree wasn't always that size, so it was one a seed or a seedling, and so it helps to expand your consciousness when you start looking at cause and effect, how things come about. And it removes one layer of blindness, that things are like that the way they are, with forgetting that is an evolution that brought them about. So we have a plate of food, and then there's all these cause and effect that produce about, the people in the fields and then the shopkeeper, the people which made the different ingredients and then cooked it and bring that result in your plate. So if you take the habit of looking at these cause and condition, it helps you also to understand interdependence, how much of everything you enjoy in your life depends on other. So in the meditation on bodhicitta, the exchange of self for other, so you use that a lot also to realize, we are dependent on other, not only because they've been our mothers, our teacher, our friend, but everything you enjoy, is dependent on other. Each time we drive on a road, it depends on the guys that build the road, right? We drive in a car, it depends on all the people working in the factory that produce that car. So our life is so much more interdependent to whole humanity than we think. You see, we fly here and there. How many people get involved into making the plane, training pilot, making airport and driveways and things. It's huge. All the people that are involved with just us, flying here and there. So to have this feeling of how your life is interconnected with whole humanity like that helps you to develop this mind that you're responsible for the happiness of everyone. See, it helps you for developing bodhicitta. So this understanding of cause and condition helps you to realize emptiness, and it helps you to realize bodhicitta. It's one ingredient that is very helpful. So I think it's not so difficult to have this insight how things depend on cause and condition and parts, because the parts we can almost see, can see some of the parts, and we can infer other parts. And cause and condition, we know that the car wasn't always there, that it was produced somewhere. So if you train your mind like that, life becomes much more interesting. You become much more alive. You see, you start inferring cause and effect, how things come about. It's so much richer than just seeing things flat, concrete, solid, without seeing the cause, without inferring how it's going to unfold. And it's not that difficult. It's just the mind is lazy to do that. It's not that it's difficult by itself. Just the mind, if you don't train your mind to do that, it doesn't do it by itself. It's not that it's actually difficult to do. How much minute left? Huh? 3:30. Okay. So let's make 5-minute break. 10 minutes. So, yeah. So, I would like first that we meditate on the 9-round vase breathing. So, this method is effective to bring a calm and clear mind, you know. So even though Lama Yeshe, even at the first, as complete beginner, he induced us to do this meditation. Um, Actually, its root is in highest yoga tantra, but Lama thought we Westerners, we're very comfortable with manipulating energy. So he thought it might be helpful for us. So in Tantra, it explains that, you see, it has a little bit different map of reality. So it says that our normal level of consciousness is there because the wind in our subtle body follow in the 72,000 channel, and that they don't flow inside the central channel, or very little. So from a tantric perspective, if you want to change your level of consciousness, you change the flow of energy in your subtle body. So by bringing the wind inside the central channel, you change your level of consciousness. And I think I took LSD maybe 3 times, and maybe mushroom 2 times in my life, when I was a teenager. And what it does, really change the flow of energy in your body. And you get other level, you have insight in that other level of consciousness, because somehow this chemical affect the way the energy flows in your body. But because, how to say, the mind is impure, you have all this crazy hallucination. So instead of seeing things as pure, you see them just diluted in a different way. So it's not actually very helpful, in terms of spiritual development. It just shows you that there's another level of reality possible, but that's all. So with Tantra, especially on the completion stage, you start manipulating the energy in your body and bring it inside the central channel so that it awakens or make you aware of a more subtle level of consciousness. And then you use this more subtle level of consciousness to meditate. Now, there's another thing interesting, that when you are able to awaken more subtle level of consciousness, your gross negative emotion cannot function. Because for gross anger, gross obsession, desire, for this gross emotion to function, it needs a gross level of energy, a gross level of consciousness. So when your consciousness becomes more subtle, those mind cannot function anymore. I think often the image that comes to my mind is when you go hiking into the mountain. The higher you go, the because of the lack of oxygen in the air, your mind is affected. Your mind becomes lighter. So something affects your body and mind. The higher you go in mountain, I think you will have that experience. So it's similar. The more your consciousness becomes subtle, the less the gross thought, the gross emotion can function. So that's why when you go through the death process, as your consciousness, as the death process unfolds, and as your consciousness becomes more subtle, your normal sense of I disappear, and your normal thought and emotion disappear. All these thoughts, memories, emotion are too gross. They cannot function in that rarefied, subtle state of consciousness. So in the clear light of death, all these thoughts, emotion completely disappear. So it's almost like when you're dead, you're actually enlightened. So you experience this more subtle level of consciousness. But an ordinary person cannot make use of it. He simply experiences this blissful, non-dual, vast, subtle consciousness for a while. And then when that experience of death unfolds, the mind becomes grosser again. He goes to, in reverse order, to the mind of lack, near attainment, red increase, white appearance, and then the four elements manifest again, and he's arise into the intermediate state body. But the yogi and yogini that are trained, when they go through the process of death absorption, their consciousness becomes more and more subtle. Then actually can use that refined, subtle state of consciousness to realize emptiness and to become free. So one place where you can become Buddha is at the time of death. So a yogi, a trained yogi, he looks forward the experience of death because it's going to be the best meditation he has ever had, and he will try to use it. And if he uses it, that moment, he can become Buddha. He can become omniscient at that moment. Because enlightenment is not realized with our gross mind. Enlightenment is not achieved with the subtle mind. Enlightenment is achieved with a very subtle mind of clear light. And the yogi, yogini that is able to use it and become Buddha then, he never goes through the process of reverse order. So Buddha doesn't live with a gross level of consciousness like we do. They live on a latter level of consciousness. So Lama Yeshe, knowing we Western are comfortable with manipulating energy, and knowing that if one can bring a little bit our mind inside the central channel, how it reduces, the more your mind becomes subtle, the less your gross mind, your gross thought, your gross destructive emotion can function. So it's how to say, an easier way to develop calm abiding. You see, many people actually develop calm abiding on the completion stage because the mind is more subtle and naturally it has less disturbing thought and emotion. So it's easier to develop calm abiding. So to do this meditation, you imagine, so, it's like the previous meditation, you try to sit as, comfortable with the back as straight as possible. And then you imagine your body as a light energy body. So it's not a body full of organs and skeleton, thing like that, right? So on your mind level, you imagine your body being like a balloon, just the skin, and inside the body, just empty space. Then you imagine a tube of light going from your third eye, so from your mid-brow up along your skull to the top of your head. And then you imagine that tube of light going down just in front of where your spine is. A tube of light. And that tube of light goes down to your sexual organ. But for this visualization, for this meditation, we actually visualize it going down to 4 finger width below the belly button, closer to the spine. And then along that channel, there are chakras or wheels in which like a channel, side channel go out. So you have a chakra at the top of the head, one in the middle of the brain, one at the throat, one at the heart, one at the navel. So in this context, we try to feel the chakra at the navel. If you don't feel anything, that's completely fine. But in this practice, the way one does, one tries to imagine that chakra at the navel and try to see an ember in there, a small flame. And as we blow on it, we imagine that this flame of blissful energy, heat, rise inside the central channel, that tube of light that you have visualized. And then there's 2 lateral channels. So from both nostrils, there's a smaller tube of light that goes up from the 2 nostrils up to the top of the head, and they go down on both sides of the central channel, again to about below the central channel at the navel chakra. These 2 side tube, they curve and enter from the bottom inside the central channel. So when we do the 9-1 breathing, you imagine first inhaling through the right nostril. So you can do it either just visualization, or there's a hand mudra that can help. So you can do the Vajra fist, So it's something like you put the thumbs below the ring finger and you make a fist, kind of like that. Yeah, kind of like that. And then the left hand, you put the upper part of your hand against your body. So it all has to do with blocking channels in your subtle body. Right? So you don't put the hand like that, but you put it. You have to squeeze it. You turn it, twist it. Okay, like that, and then you raise the index, and with that one, so you're gonna block the nostril so that you can inhale 3 times to the right, and then you switch the finger, and then you exhale to the left. So you do that 3 times like that, and then 3 times in reverse. You inhale first to the left, and you exhale to the right. And then the third circle, you imagine you put your hand on your lap or on your knees, wherever is comfortable. And when you inhale, you make the fist, and when you exhale, you open the fist, and like that. So we try like that. So you imagine that you inhale light to the right channel, and that light cleans the right channel, right? And then uh, when you completely inhale, you hold the breath a few seconds, and then you imagine that that light pushes out the stale air from your left channel. You know, you push out the dirty air that you imagine from your left. So you inhale 3 times light from the right, you exhale the dirt from the left, then you reverse, you inhale 3 times light from the left, and exhale dirt from the right. And then you inhale light to both nostrils, and you bring it down below the belly button or below the navel chakra, and you hold it there, and then you imagine you exhale inside the central channel. So you push the light inside. So this time you don't imagine dirt coming up, you just imagine the light dissolving inside the central channel and making you aware of a more subtle level of consciousness. And as you, yeah, after a while, you stop doing the left and right. You just do the third circle. You know, just both nostril in and exhaling inside the center. You keep on doing that, and gradually you focus more and more on the navel chakra, on that amber. And with each exhale, you imagine blowing on it, and that blowing on it makes it hotter, makes it warmer, makes it more blissful, and like that. Okay, we try. So like before, neither too tense, not too relaxed. And you inhale gently, not particularly quick. And then you hold the breath in for a few seconds and you squeeze the wind, squeeze your mind in direction the navel chakra. And sometimes it helps if at the same time you squeeze together the muscle of your sexual organ and from the pelvic floor. So you squeeze those muscles together and you pull with your mind that energy, that warmth up to your navel chakra. And then you imagine you pull or you blow that energy inside your central channel. And then with each exhale, you imagine that you blow on that ember in your navel chakra, and that ember turns into a small flame. And with each exhale, you imagine that the flame rise from an inch. With each exhale, it raises. So gradually it rise to the level of your heart, then your throat, and then your head. And at the beginning, you seem to be looking at the mind, at that column of light inside your body. But gradually you try to bring your mind inside that column of light. So instead of looking at it from outside, you try to be inside. So at the beginning, it's mostly just imaginary. You just imagine the whole thing. And then gradually, it becomes more and more real. All right, relax. Mhm. So, for certain people, this meditation can be helpful. For other people, just inhaling light and pushing and exhaling, so one inhale light and then one exhale, one pushes the still air out. Inhale light and push, exhale, still light. Just in general, without imagining the channel. And then focus on the movement, the breath at the level of the navel, So, Alan Wallace, he, from his experience of teaching Shine for dozens of years, so he sees for Western what's most effective is to use the breath at the beginning, and then later on, when you reach level 3 or 4 of calm abiding, then you can use the space like nature of the mind, or you can continue with the breath. And I think for those which do highest yoga tantra, doing the inner fire like we did, can also be a valid object of calm abiding. I think it is important to do a little bit of calm abiding every day. Because otherwise, if your mind doesn't become calm and your mind is always restless, agitated with thoughts and emotion, you never get the benefit of what meditation brings. And then whatever meditation you do, with your agitated, restless mind, you do prayer and analytical meditation. But because the base is restlessness, the insight you get is very superficial. So, whereas if you're able to get to a certain level of calmness, all the quality of your meditation improve. So if one can do, 20 minutes of calm abiding a day, that would be excellent. So I don't know, here at the center, do you have sessions of calm abiding? I think would be good, once a week. For example, you go in the Zen center every morning from 6 to 7 or 7 to 8, depending on the every morning is 1 hour of shine, calm abiding. You know? It's just the way it is, you know. And I think it's, and many Vipassana center or Theravada center also they have 1 hour of calm abiding, right? And you really notice when you go to those centers, people have a calmness that comes from the years of doing 1 hour of calm abiding a day. The quality of these people that you don't have in our Tibetan Buddhist center, you know, where it's bloop, bloop, bloop. It's true, you know. Of course, we develop other quality they don't develop. But I think when I think the first Tibetan Buddhist center I went was Karma Kagyu. And they also do, you know, they start with the Chenrezig meditation. They do four-arm Chenrezig sadhana for maybe 15, 20 minutes. And then the rest of the hour, they sit silently, you know, kind of like that. So I think somehow it's one of the meditation. It's easier if you're a group of people doing it than if you do alone. Somehow the group energy helps the mind settle, you know. So I think if you could organize, if there are people interested at the center, you know, you choose 1 day a week and you make an hour, you know, you just keep it the same time, the same day of the week. And I notice you have other rooms here. It could be in a small room. It doesn't need to be a big room empty. You know, it can just be a small, but just sitting together in silence. You know, and doesn't need to do any prayer, anything. Just come there. There's the cushion, and everybody sits down and does his own motivation, his own prayer, and then his own sitting silently. And you benefit from the group energy of sitting together. I think. I think for a center is good to offer that, especially at city center, you know, to offer that. And or it could be one of the senior student leading it, you know. There's many different way of going about it, depends, you know, who would be interested. So I think it would be good for the center to maybe offer it, to explain and see whether there's an interest, you know. Because really, the more calm abiding you have, all your other meditation improve, you know. Why the Tibetan Lama don't emphasize that is because you can get addicted to calm abiding. And then you don't want to use thought anymore. You don't want to analyze. You don't want to develop other qualities. Because it's just so nice to be peacefully peaceful. Why using a thought? What for? I'm sure, you know. So kind of like that. So that's a little bit the danger of calm abiding because it's pleasant, it's blissful, it's peaceful. So you don't feel like doing anything else. And they warn us that we had calm abiding in many previous lives, and you know it, it doesn't have benefited us, right? So it's a means to develop a certain quality of mind, and then you're supposed to use that quality of mind, you know, to develop other insight, other qualities, you know, through analytical meditation. I was surprised the other day. I heard that Yangtze Rinpoche, which has a center in Portland, when they meet, you know, with his class, they do 45 minutes of calm abiding, and then they have discussion, Dharma discussion. Probably he teaches something, but they do 45 minutes of calm abiding at the beginning. I was surprised. You know Tibetan Lama, and yeah. And I think you could even have it on Zoom, then people which cannot come, they see the bunch of people sitting in meditation, they can, perhaps it helps too, than to be alone. I don't know. You have to experiment. Actually, a few years ago, I led a Mahamudra class online, and I asked people to keep the camera on, And I notice there's a big difference when I meditate in front of a dark screen, when nobody turns on the screen, and then when everybody has the screen on and everybody meditates. Even through Zoom, you see a difference when you sit with other meditators, so it could work. You can have a virtual Shinestanga. So far, we have what we talked about is try, how do you know whether you make spiritual progress or not? How do you know whether your years of practice have done any good to you? Right? So one level is if you have become more aware of karma. You're more mindful of whether what you do is virtuous, non-virtuous, whether when you do non-virtuous, you generate regret and you purify, So you're aware of your thought, your speech and action in everyday life. So the more you're aware of that, that's a sign of progress, no? And also whether you check your motivation before doing something, and you try to transform into a better motivation. And then the second sign of progress is if you start seeing things, you see, depending on cause, condition, path, and mainly label. The mainly label part, we're going to come to it. So if you see things more, more from the point of view of emptiness. So again, it's a flavor that starts pervading your days. And then the third aspect is if your heart, becomes kinder, you're more patient, more warm-hearted, more appreciative of other living beings, more loving, more compassionate in your daily life. So that's a sign of success. So it shows that you make some progress. So this we're going to do tomorrow. I'd like to meditate on that tomorrow. So definitely there's signs of progress you can see, right? In terms of your ethic, in terms of your aspiration to become free from cyclic existence, and on your insight into emptiness and dependent arising. And then you love compassion. So love compassion is not bodhicitta. Right? So we'll see tomorrow. Many people confuse love and compassion with bodhicitta. And Atisha said, in Tibet, there's the only place where there are bodhisattva with no love and compassion. You know, he made that comment once. So also, to have bodhicitta means that you have love and compassion. Mm. Okay, so when we look at the carpet, you know, if with our eye consciousness, it just looks a carpet there, right? But by using our thought, we know that the carpet was created by someone, a manufacturer, so we can imagine the causes that produces this carpet, right? So, and that carpet is impermanent. So there's growth, cause and effect, you know, and then there's subtle change moment by moment, right? That carpet is not static. It keeps on subliminal particle, it keeps on changing from moment to moment, right? So it's not a static phenomena. So there's the growth, cause and effect. You know, somebody made it and then it's there. And then there's the subtle change that happens from moment to moment. And then also that carpet depends on its parts, right? All the thread that uh, that goes into that carpet, you know, being woven together. The difficult part is to realize that that carpet doesn't exist there independent from one's consciousness. So we think, you see, we say, yeah, there's a carpet there. Yes, it depends on cause and conditions there. It changes subliminal particles there, right? But we don't take into consideration there's actually the consciousness that creates the carpet, you know? In the sense there's no carpet there from its own side without your mind labeling it a carpet. See, whereas if we don't analyze, oh, the carpet is there independent from my consciousness, you know. But actually, there's only if you look for that carpet in its parts, you just find thousands of threads, right, being put together in a certain way. So from its own side, it's not a carpet, you know. It's just a bunch of thread in a certain form. It's the consciousness, the mind, that imputes carpet on that thing that is able to perform a function, you know. So the carpet comes into being depending on the consciousness. So it's merely imputed by the mind. So that's the difficult part of the Prasangika view. So also the cause of the carpet, you know, what produced the carpet still exists, but that also was merely labeled by the mind, right? And the carpet changing, you know, the whole process of cause and effect happens within the fact of being merely labeled by the mind. So being coming into existence by being merely labeled of mind doesn't mean that cause and effect doesn't function, right? So that's the difficult thing. See, when one starts meditating on emptiness, oh, it doesn't exist from his own side, or my mind merely labels it, then one has difficulty to understand how actually depends on cause and condition parts, right? So one's understanding is correct when you can posit cause and effect, how things change independent of cause and effect, while being simply merely labeled by the mind. As long as these two things appear contradictory, you know, if you can only see all things depend on cause, past and things like that. Yeah. And when you when you see the emptiness of the thing, you cannot figure out how it depends on cause and condition anymore. So that means that you haven't yet figured out correctly. So usually you understand the reasoning based on an outer object first. You know, so a simple object is one where you can see its parts very clearly, like these glasses, right? So from its own side, you have the frame and the two glasses, right? And so there, from one way of looking at it, you can see a frame and two glasses, right? On a frame and two glasses that can perform the function of reading, you impute glasses, right? But when you don't think about it like that, you just look there, the glasses there from his own side, independent from you imputing it glasses. So one repeats that understanding with many objects. You see, there appear to be a rosary there. You know, oh, is there a rosary in the room? Yeah, there's one on Rene's table. Oh, wait, it's there. You know, so there's a rosary there, right? And it appears to exist there from its own side, independent from your mind, right? But when you start analyzing where the rosary is, none of the beads is the rosary, the thread is not the rosary, and together is only 108 beads and a thread, right? But 108 beads with the thread put together in a certain way, that can perform the function that you expect of a rosary. That is a valid base to be called rosary. There's no rosary other than you imputing it rosary. There's no rosary there independent from your consciousness labeling it. So you repeat that analysis with many objects till you get it quite clear how your mind sees things when you don't analyze, how things appear to exist from his own side. And then how when you start analyzing, you realize that it's not found there from its own side, it's merely imputed by your mind. And once, how to say, you start with easy objects, you know, things you can see the parts very easily. And then you start looking, you know, human beings and animals and things that are alive that appear even more there from their own side. You know, how that is mainly labeled by the mind. And then, but then the real experience comes by applying to oneself. You know, I, me, is merely imputed on the body and mind. There's no other me than being merely imputed by the mind. And that makes you some kind of inner experience. You see, if you don't think, usually we have the I appear in two ways. Either he appears very subliminally, because you don't have many thoughts, or let's say you do calm abiding, you meditate calmly, and there is no strong sense of I, you know. But then you think about something, oh, I should do that, oh, she or he wants me to do that. And so your ego, your I starts becoming stronger. And then it appears to exist from his own side somewhere with your mind or your head or your chest. But then when you look where this I actually is, you cannot pinpoint it to anywhere in the body, mind, or outside. It's a complete hallucination. So how does the I exist? Like the carpet being merely imputed on the thread, like the glasses being merely imputed on the frame and the two lens, like the rosary being merely imputed on the thread and the beads, the I is merely imputed on the body and mind. Nothing more than that. So the way the I actually exists is very, very subtle. It's not like the big elephant walking in our head. And then your body, with its limbs and trunk and head, there appear to be a body sitting there, a one thing, a body. But the head is not the body, the trunk is not the body, the four limbs are not the body. And put together, they're just a head, a trunk, and four limbs. So on the head, trunk, and four limbs, the mind lay impute body. It doesn't exist from its own side, independent from your mind labeling it. And when we think about the mind, we think about that space in which thought and emotion arise and mental images. There's some kind of image of a mind existing from its own side. But the mind is made of moment of awareness. 1 second of awareness turns into the next second of awareness, something like that. So there's a stream of moment of awareness. And each moment of awareness can be split further down. So there's no mind objectively in front of you or in your head existing from its own side. Mind is merely imputed by your mind onto this collection of thought, emotion, space of awareness that change from moment to moment. And I, me, is merely imputed on this merely imputed body and merely imputed mind. And if within that state you try to arise anger or attachment, it doesn't work. Because attachment or aversion can only function if things exist from their own side. So if you see, when you meditate on the emptiness of the body, emptiness of the mind, emptiness of the eye, and then within that experience, you try to recollect an event where you had attachment or aversion. So if your meditation of emptiness undermines your attachment and aversion, it means that you're on the right track. If your meditation on emptiness of the body, mind, and eye doesn't undermine your attachment or your aversion, then it means you haven't yet got it correctly. All right, make a little break.
Yes. Can you hear me on Zoom, Michael? Okay, thank you. Vasanta had a question. Venerable, is the practice of working with the flame in the central channel similar to Kundalini rising? Also, how many rounds of nine-part breathing can be done at one time?
In the Kundalini yoga in the Hindu tradition is a little bit different, where the energy rises along the central channel, but not within the central channel. Whereas here in the Tibetan yoga, one tries to bring the wind inside the central channel. So it's similar that it deals with the same type of energy, but is slightly different. And then how many rounds? Basically, as much as it's comfortable for you. You know, there's no, yeah. Usually one starts with the 9 round for a little while. Let's say, you know, one can do 7 or 3, 7, 21 or whatever you feel like. And then one does only the last 3 rounds. You know, one focus on the amber at the navel chakra, and then one blow with each exhale, we blow on that, you know. So that becomes then our object of calm abiding. Yeah.
Thank you, Venerable. Vasanta, if there's any follow-up question, please let me know. The next question we have is from Shael. When we see that things are imputed by our own mind and we see the parts, why is this important?
You see, if I'm attracted to something, let's say, yeah, I'm attracted to a person, then that attractness is exaggerated because the person appears to exist from his own side, independent from my mind labeling that person. So the attraction the attachment attract from the person side is exaggerated. So same thing, I might be addicted to tea, I love tea, right? So there appears to be an attractive tea there from his own side, and I'm attracted to that tea, right? If I'm thinking there's only water and some tea leaves that color the water, and that my mind merely imputes tea on that water and that tea leaves, so suddenly the craving for that tea decreases. You see? So you have to see that you have to play with your mind, or you have a problem with a person. So let's say, sometimes one think about a politician, let's say Trump, so you think about Trump, and then you have this emotion that arise, either completely positive or completely negative, right? On the bed, and you think that Trump is there from his own side, but yet actually, there's the body, there's the thought, the emotion, the stream of thing, and on that base, I impute Trump. There's no Trump there. That exaggerated character is not there. This is my mind that exaggerates that. So there is a valid Trump there, depending on cause, part, stream of thought, outrageous behavior, and so forth. But the mind that sees it existing inherently from his own side exaggerate that, and then that produce all this strong emotion towards him. Whereas if you see him as dependent arising, merely labeled by the mind, actually you can generate love and compassion towards him, right? Because you see, he also has a pure nature of the mind. His nature also fundamentally pure. He also has Buddha nature. He also has the mind of clear light, right? But at the moment, he's completely, how to say, veiled by his strong sense of ego, his persona, right? And then out of that, he engaged in his lying, his exaggeration, all this strange behavior, right? So if you look from the point of view of what karma he creates, he creates a lot of negative karma, right? So, and as a consequence of that, he will suffer, a lot, right? So you can actually generate compassion towards him, that actually, yeah. And what kind of peace of mind, yes, he's very wealthy and very famous and all that, but in terms of peace of mind or inner well-being, how much inner well-being can you have with a mind like that, right? So if you look it from a wisdom side, then because the person doesn't exist inherently from his own side out there, you can actually see it, and you can generate compassion towards him and love, and wish him to, wish him well, wish him to become Buddha, wish him to change his mind, yeah, something like that. So I think, and that's just an example, one might have a problem. You see, it's interesting if you live with somebody, let's say you have a partner or something, the morning attachment to that person, you love him or her, if he or she said something, then you have aversion at lunchtime, and then at dinner time again, he or she says something nice, again attraction, so the same person, because of changing circumstance, attraction and aversion comes all the time. And we have that with everyone, right? The person says something nice, or you like him or her, something so, or make him face, or is moody, and then suddenly you don't like that person so much anymore. And then again, smiling, again you like, right? So on what base? It doesn't exist from his own, it's my own mind. And when you see things like that, somehow you in that yo-yo attraction, aversion, indifference, attraction, aversion, indifference. Your mind is actually stable regardless of how because you know that the person changes according to his own state of mind, what's going on in his or her mind, their affliction, their mental game, right? So it's not solidly there. That person changes depending on his inner makeup change from moment to moment. Right? So by seeing that, you go to that even mindness, right? So where you don't have attraction and aversion, you just see what is, and it doesn't steer attraction and aversion in you. So that's why they say, when you realize emptiness, all phenomena appear with an equal taste. Everything appears the same to you. In a sense, there's no more attraction, aversion, indifference. You just see things as they are, and it doesn't bring about those states of mind. Your mind is just even-mindedness, and in that even-mindedness, there is love, there's compassion, there's understanding that person doesn't mean to hurt you, that person doesn't mean to produce this attraction or this emotion in you. It's just the person goes through his own thing, right? So I think it's good, when you meditate on emptiness and you think you get it, try to remember a situation where you got upset. Or, when I'm speaking about upset and attachment, I don't think big upsetness or big attraction, conscious, I don't know how you say, yeah, not upset, obsession, big obsession, just the daily change we have in our relationship, It's very simple. You observe the person smiles at you, yeah, that person, feel attraction, if you like, and then the person makes a face. Why does he make a face to me? Then the man, becomes upset. It's interesting to observe how this change happened. And then when you start seeing from the point of view of emptiness and this dependent, this goes away, this fades away. You kind of an equal perception of being, you just see things as dependent rising, dependent on cause condition. These things arise. And then on that base, it's very easy to develop love and compassion because you see things as they are, not how you exaggeratedly project. Yeah.
Thank you, Venerable. Shail has a follow-up question. And then we have one more question from Marjorie as well. Shail asks, is the goal to see ourselves as parts that has been made up to be human without a truly existing self? Thus, every outer phenomena is like this. Thus, there's nothing to hold on to, because when we crave and desire, we create like and dislike equaling karma. And then, if this view is correct, what is wrong with this?
I don't think I really understood what she's trying to say.
Perhaps, Shail, could you please unmute yourself and share your question? If you're comfortable, or please retype and I'll do my best. Shail is not able to unmute, so perhaps.
There were many aspects in her stream of reasoning, so
I'll reread it. Slowly.
No, just simplify it, bring it to one point.
Okay. Shale, could you simplify your question, please, and retype it into the chat? And in the meantime, if it's okay with you, I can move on to the next question while you rephrase yours. Okay, good. Okay, so Marjorie's question is, first of all, thank you for the meditation experience. I liked being inside the central channel. But then after a bit, the thought of what I is in the central channel came up. Is it the mere I, the light body visualized in the central channel? Could you explore this a bit more and how to best work with it?
So there's two ways of seeing that. Normally, one meditates on emptiness before making the meditation on the central channel. Because in the central channel, you try not to use thoughts, because thoughts are gross and they make you go out of the central channel. So it's counterproductive to use thoughts while you meditate being in central channel. So there you meditate more on calm abiding, on remaining in this subtle consciousness inside the central channel. So that's one way to explain it. So usually one would enter inside the central channel having meditated analytically before meditating on a central channel. So you have already dissolved your sense of inerrantness of the I, and then keeping the flavor of the absence of inerrant existent I, you enter into the central channel with that awareness that the I is merely imputed. Right? And you continue with that awareness, but without doing analysis. Now, the second way of looking at it is that you meditate inside this. So I think the other one is for more advanced practitioner. The first I described, I think is for more advanced practitioner. Now, if one is more beginner and doesn't have yet that emptiness, that mental image, that correct mental image of emptiness as the I is made imputed by mind. One doesn't have that yet. So one enters into the central channel and basically one is the mind that is inside the central channel. So there one let the I arise within the central channel, one produces thought and memory, blah, 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 I am such and such and things like that. And then with another part of the mind, one looks at that I and realizes that it is nowhere. And one stays in that absence of the I that was upset, the I that has attraction and so forth. And you could use two reasonings, right? So either the 4-point analysis or the reasoning of dependent rising. So you let the I arise, and then you say, if this I exists, it has to be either one with the body, one with the mind, or separate. There's no third option. So if you have familiarized yourself with that reasoning before, that by itself would trigger you to the experience of emptiness. And the second reasoning, if you have familiarized yourself with the reasoning of the I is empty of existing from its own side because it is dependent rising, because the I is merely labeled by the mind. So you would bring up the sense of I inside the central channel, and then you would look at it and say, this I is empty from existing from its own side because the I is merely labeled on the mind. Either merely labeled on the mind, if that's all that you see, if you really meditate on the central channel, and you're in there, you don't have any feeling of bodiness anymore. So then you said the I is merely imputed on that mind of clear light. Now, if you still have the feeling of bodiness, part of your mind is still aware of the body and aware of the mind inside the center channel. He said, I is merely labeled on this body and mind. It doesn't exist from his own side. So that would be enough to bring about the experience of emptiness and dependent arising. But it depends how much you have really understood those two meditation and really tasted them, So it's not just an intellectual understanding. It's already more than that. You really get a flavor, you get a taste. And then you can repeat that. Yeah.
So Marjorie said, yes, thank you very much. And then Sheila will try this again. Sheila's question is, in daily life, do I see there's no self and everything I experience with my mind is not solid, just parts coming and going? If so, how do I not create non-duality so that no negative karma is created? And Sheila can unmute now, and the mic's now working. Need more.
The thing is that it's not black and white, not black or white. You have both mind at the same time. You see, until you Buddha, seeing on one side will appear to be inherently existent, but your mental consciousness, because the mental consciousness is aware of emptiness and dependent arising, so the stronger you are aware of emptiness and dependent arising, the less karma you would create. Not the less karma you create, but the less stronger the karma is. Less heavy the karma is. So the weaker your emptiness in your mind, the stronger the karmic imprints are. The stronger the emotion, the stronger your emptiness and dependent rising, the weaker your emotions and your karma created. So it's a question of different degree of intensity. It's not you create karma or you don't create karma. It's just how heavy or light it becomes. So, but now, so interestingly, the stronger your experience of emptiness and dependent rising, actually the better your meditation on love and compassion becomes. So your negative emotion become weaker, but it doesn't weaken your positive emotion. So you can meditate on love and compassion. You cannot get angry at a malely labeled person, right? But you can generate love towards a malely labeled person. And you can generate compassion towards a malely labeled person. Right? So emptiness, dependence, weaken the negative emotion, but they don't weaken the positive emotion. Yeah.
Sheila, I hope that that answer worked. Yes, thank you, Sheila said. So thank you. So wonderful.
Anything else?
We have a question from Nina.
Thank you, Venerable, for the teachings. I was just wondering, because last night you led us through meditation, which was focusing on our heart chakra. And today we were focusing on our navel chakra. But I'm just wondering whether these are two techniques that would lead us to the same experience ultimately, that we would then practice calm abiding on, or are these two techniques meant to lead us to two different destinations, so to speak?
I think due to our work in previous life, certain people have more access to one chakra more than other, right? So I think it's based on that our gurus give us this yidam or that yidam. It's because our subtle body, due to the work we've done in previous lives, is developed in a different way. So they can see our subtle body and they can see which method would be more suitable for this and that subtle body. So certain people, can feel the head chakra, and that's the only one. Other ones the throat chakra, other one the heart chakra. So you basically, it works best to start with the one you already feel, compared to start with one you don't feel, right? So, but ultimately, it all leads to the same point. Ultimately, you have to open all the chakra and clean all of them and purify the whole thing, right? So it doesn't really matter where you start. It matters personally because you have more experience following this than that, right? So basically, at the beginning, it's more encouraging to start where you feel something, where you have a little bit of experience, right? So in that sense, And then as a teacher, you explain different way, and some person hit with that one, the other one hit with that one, right? So like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Venerable. I'm sorry, Mary. I have one more question, if I may. Venerable, you advised us to do 20 minutes of Shina practice every day, and also for the center to do an hour per week.
Maybe an hour is long, maybe 45 minutes would be maybe more, then you think I'm going an hour to the center, then you have the 5 minutes till you start and then 10 minutes till you leave, maybe something like that. But you can work it out, the detail, I think you can figure it out.
What I was wondering about was whether you could talk a little bit about the object of calm abiding meditation, whether it is something that you think everybody should decide on individually, or would you advise some specific object at the beginning and other objects as a continuation, what different objects we can choose from, and so on. Thank you.
I think if somebody, comes to the center, is new and want to sit with you, then I think it's good to explain on the breath, the meditation on the movement of the breath, because that's, Buddha gave that method, says it applies to all, it's an antidote to all the delusion. Right? So simply focusing on the movement of breath calms all your mental affliction, kind of like that. So I think for beginner, focusing on the breath is the easiest because everybody finds the breath, right? Whereas if you say the mind, then what are you talking about? What's the mind? Where is the mind? And, you know, so the breath, everybody agrees, knows where to find, right? So I would focus with the breath. But then the people which do it for a while and have experience, you know, with the breath. So some people have a natural feeling for the mind, the space of the mind, you know. So some is due to imprint from previous life, and some is because they have developed a certain level of calm abiding on the breath. So instead of having the breath as an object, you become aware of the mind that watches the breath. So you see, while keeping the object, the breath, you've become aware of the mind that watches the awareness that watches the breath. And then you take the awareness as the object of calm abiding. No. And then I think once you're a certain level of calmness, I think it's good. Personally, if I would lead a meditation like that, I would probably do half hour on the breath and then 10 minutes on love or compassion. Because basically on the movement of the breath, you know, while keep focusing on the breath, but with the out breath, you send love, you know. So you send love, well-being to your part. You know, we all have relationship problems with everyone, right? You know, because we all imperfect being, right? So, you know, we have our dealings with problems. Come on, let's not say we're all pure Buddhas, right? Let's be honest, you know. So we have relationship issues, right? So in your cushion, then you bring that person up, and then you generate love or compassion, you know. So with the exhale, you send love. So you focus 5 minutes on that. So you can start with your kids, which you naturally have love, or your partner, you naturally have love, or your parents. And then gradually you expand to more and more people. So because you have focused on calm abiding first, your mind is already more subtle, more calm. So then when you bring about a positive emotion, it's more heartfelt than before if you don't do calm abiding first. Right? So then you really feel for that person, you know. Yeah. And then you basically, each session, it depends on what's happening in your life. You know, you enter a relationship with people you have. So you use those people that fill your mental space, so you generate love or compassion towards them. And if they have problems, so you generate compassion for them. You know? And then this love, compassion is such a positive state of mind, such a beautiful emotion to live in. You know, you feel really a decent human being, and you know, and to live with loving kindness and compassion is so beautiful. So to finish the meditation like that, and then you go out in the world, you know, and you're imbued with that love and compassion. You know, I think that would be excellent. So because you see, focusing on the breath itself is a neutral object. It's neither positive nor negative. The meditation on calm abiding on the breath becomes positive due to the motivation you have before, why you do the meditation. But the object itself is neutral. Whether love and compassion, whether you have a positive motivation or not, doesn't matter, because love and compassion are virtuous, positive emotion. Right? So the object itself is positive. Right? So I would do like that, you know, maybe half hour, 20 minutes or half hour karma day on the breath, and then 5 minutes on love, and then 5 minutes on compassion, something like that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
So you spoke about bliss, and bliss isn't enough, right?
So on what?
Bliss.
Louder.
Bliss isn't enough.
Bliss.
Right.
Yeah, we all love bliss. Mm.
But it's not enough. So I often, almost daily, wake up in a state of bliss, and that's a long time, probably since birth, maybe due to circumstances. And I don't, when I was writing notes about what you were saying, I didn't quite catch, like, what can I do with that? And
So bliss is a word, right? And bliss,
it's
in
a
everyday language, we could call it pleasurable experience,
very,
right?
it's
Right.
in my body. It's
You're
just
right.
amazing.
Right. Okay. So pleasurable experiences, but then you have different type of bliss, right? So you have the bliss that is produced by calm abiding. It's one type of bliss. Simply a mind that is completely tamed into calm abiding, it produces bliss, right? And then you have the bliss that is produced simply by your sense consciousness touching object. It produces pleasurable sensation. Yeah, and some people have that heightened, and it produces a strong sense of pleasure that is bliss. You know, or when you stroke somebody, or caress, how you say? Caress is English? Okay. Okay. You caress. So, there's some feeling of bliss, of pleasurable, right? So each of our sense entering into contact with pleasurable object can produce that pleasurable sensation. And for some people, it's quite normal, but for some people, that sense of pleasure is enhanced, due to karma or whatever, or body makeup, right? So that's a type of bliss. And then there's another type of bliss that's more sexual energy, right? So some people, merely with their mind, they can bring that sexual energy up into their body, and it pervades their whole being, right? So, yeah, by focusing on the sexual organ, then they pull that sexual energy up, so they can experience an orgasmic energy, either by remembering sex or by having sex and stopping before climax. So there's different way one can induce and use that sexual energy to produce that blissful state of consciousness. And then okay. And then there's another type of bliss, is the bliss that arises when you wind enter the center channel. So each of these bliss are distinct. They are not the same. We all label them the same, but the cause of the bliss is different, right? But what is interesting with the experience of bliss, okay, so before that, bliss, if you are attached to the bliss, it creates the cause to be born in the God realm, the desire realm gods. So bliss by itself is neither positive nor negative. It's just an experience. Is if you have the ego that grasps, that holds on to the bliss, then it produces attachment to that state. And when you die, you're born in the gods where everybody are in that state of bliss. Right? So to have attachment to the bliss itself is negative. Right? So, but now for a practitioner, the mind of bliss has certain qualities. So a mind of bliss, because it's pleasurable, the mind naturally likes to stay on it because it's pleasurable, right? So that's one aspect, not one positive aspect. So it's easier to develop calm abiding on a pleasurable object than on a painful object. Right? Because painful, you don't want to stay with it, right? You want to get away. Where something pleasure, you want to stick with it, right? So it's easier to develop concentration on a pleasurable object. So the mind of bliss it's easier to develop concentration than on a neutral or a negative object, right? So bliss is good to develop calm abiding, right? But that is just, how to say, and at a certain point you have to use, another quality of the mind of bliss, it is less dualistic subject and object. When you experience bliss, a blissful state of consciousness, the duality subject and object is less big. And those quality, the fact of being pleasurable, the fact of having enhanced concentration, and the fact that is less dualistic subject and object are very useful to realize emptiness. Right? So you induce the blissful consciousness, you stabilize it, and then you focus on the emptiness of inherent existence. And because it is less so dualistic subject and object, when you have the mental image of emptiness, you actually fuse with it instead of looking it over there. You see, with the conceptual mind, emptiness is there, and you might think about emptiness with the concept. But with the mind of bliss, that duality subject and object is less strong, and you fuse with the object. Therefore, the experience is stronger and it's quicker to get realization.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry, Sean, go over first. Thank you.
Hi, Charlotte. If you're very, very like a hyper visual person, does it help to, for example, you can see a sunset and you have that bliss and like it just right away you can't see anything but just all one. But does that help, for example, the carpet experience? Does that help to understand dependent arising if you can like fragment things in your mind, almost like deconstructing them into some sort of a cubist painting? Does that help on the stage to being able to realize that even, you know, everyday life? Like literally like seeing things fragmented, even with like human beings, like someone.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
is that like,
It helps a bit. But what, you see, most yogis would agree with what you say. Lama Tsongkhapa wouldn't agree. So Lama Tsongkhapa's point of view is not enough just to deconstruct things. You have first to recognize the object of refutation. So, because you see, if you do the way you describe, then you find nothing, right? So ultimately things are nothing, but relatively they are there. So relatively they're there and you don't find them, ultimately there's nothing there, right? So that's not, according to Lama Tsongkhapa, this is not how to meditate on emptiness. So you have first to identify inherent existence, how things appear to exist from his own side. And it's that thing that you don't find. You don't find inherent existence, but the thing still exists. Right? So you must, even though you deconstruct things, you have deconstructed inherent existence. You haven't deconstruct existence. You see, existence is left, is inherent existence that is refuted.
is that more of like an intellectual exercise?
Not at all. It's really experiential. But it's not that what you do is not, I think it helps a bit. It helps a bit, to deconstruct things. Because let's say you see a human being, that makes you upset. If you deconstruct that person, you have less upsetness,
Yeah.
right?
Right, you can see.
Or
Yep.
if you see a beautiful flower and you attract the beautiful flower and mentally you deconstruct it, that the attraction to the beautiful flower decreases, right? So in that sense, it's helpful. But it's not exactly the ultimate view that we are actually aiming at.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Thank you, Venerable. Shaka has a question or a comment.
Question. So this is regarding the meditation object being you want to stay on it because it's pleasurable, or yeah, it induces bliss or pleasure or whatever, rather than something opposite. So, and you mentioned that bliss is, like one object like that, right? So would that mean also, like, for example, a holy image would also be, if you are, because you were attracted to it, right? That would be also a very good object, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's why people, they focus on Chenrezig or Buddha or Manjushri because they have Lama Tsongkhapa, because they have some kind of, or Jesus or Mary, all the religions have that, right? So you have that image as pleasant, as inspiring, we focus on the quality and then, yeah, you like to focus on it, right? But to start with, for complete beginner, you take into account that they don't know anything, right? So you focus on the breath. Everybody breathes, So, but then you see, focus on the breath and the mind. But now for individual, those which practice tantra or have deity yoga, it's a completely different picture. They can focus on whatever they like. They can visualize either front beings as enlightened beings, or themselves as an enlightened being, or chakra, or energy in the chakra. So there's so many options, right? So, but that's not what you're going to teach at the beginner's class in a center, right? So that's for individual practitioner, what they do at home, on their own cushion, or even if they sit with other people, what they do in their mind is their business, right?
While we're going over here, Kimberly just said, thank you for the teachings, Venerable.
Thank you. To get back to Charlotte's question for a minute, I think what I've been doing for years when myself and friends have talked about emptiness, I've gone to that deconstruction immediately, but it sounds like maybe the first step is to back up, see the phenomena as a whole phenomena, and recognize that's the phenomena that needs to be imputed, and then
to be imputed needs
not imputed, I'm sorry, needs to be refuted, is what I meant to say.
Yeah, that's it.
And then would the next step be to deconstruct it?
Yes.
And that's why it's refuted.
So what you deconstruct is this inherent existent object, right? So that's what you realize that is not there, has never been there, right? So, but then what is left is that the object exists mainly labeled by the mind, on the base. Right? So you have disconstructed, you have found that the inherent existent object or person is not there, has never been there, it's a complete hallucination. But the object still exists.
It seems like it would be difficult to refute an object's inherent existence, or refute an object's inherent existence without deconstructing it simultaneously. Like they seem like they're wrapped up in each other.
Repeat that one louder.
It seems like in order to refute the object's inherent existence, it's wrapped up with the fact that it's comprised of causes and conditions or parts. And that's why it's lacking inherent existence.
Yes, if you use the reasoning of dependent arising, if you use the reasoning, the 4-point analysis, not necessarily. So yes, in that, if you use the second reasoning, yes, it's interdependent. The reason why it's empty is because it is dependent arising. in that reason.
Which is one side of the coin, and the other side would be lacking in inherent existence, refuting the inherent existent object. There's two different ways to look at it.
Yeah. So either you focus on the inherent existent person, and then that inherent existent person is not found within his body, mind, separate, and then you haven't found the inherent existent person, then you stay in that state of absorption of not finding the inherent existent person. You make it sink in from your head to your heart that that person doesn't exist from his own side inherently. And then when you come out of that state of mind, but how does the person actually exist? So the person exists on the base of a collection of parts of the body and mind. The person is mainly imputed on that, right? So that's with the 4-point analysis. Now with the inherent existence, the person appears inherently from his own side, and then you remember how things exist merely labeled. So merely recollecting how things exist merely labeled destroys the inherent existence. You know, merely focusing on how the person actually exists destroys how it exists from his own side.
Got some homework.
Venerable, we have a question online from Anne Yoshinaga. Could you please unmute?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I have a question about the last two questions, your answers. So I kind of was taught to contemplate dependent arising, causes and conditions, parts. And so walking around in the world, encountering things, we'll be contemplating causes and conditions and parts. And then I just wanted to ask this element of looking at the self-existent or inherent existence that's merely imputed by mind. When when investigating causes and conditions and parts, everything kind of becomes very spacious. But then when you talk about imputed by mind, it's not just some object out there that becomes spacious. It brings it back to the, I don't know how to say, the relational. It's imputed by my mind, my kind of emptiness on the side of the observer. Does that make sense?
Let me put it in a different way. So ultimately, everything is empty, space like emptiness, right? You don't find anything there from his own side. It's only pure space of non-finding, right? But now, relatively, superficially, the phenomena can appear in two ways. Either they inherently, there's an inherent table there, or there's a merely labeled table. Right? So you have the conventional truth for the ignorant people which don't know emptiness. Everything up is solid concrete. And then you have the relative truth of those which have seen emptiness. So they see things as merely labeled. Yes, but when you see merely labeled, you see the conventional world. You're not in space of emptiness, right? So you see the conventional world, but it is everything is interdependent, right? So you see the manifest phenomena, cause, effect, part, mind imputing. So yes, you see the relative world, but the relative world not solid as before. But still you see this relative world, you don't see the space of emptiness. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
There's another element there. So a beginner yogi, which has or yogini, because you're a lady. So at the beginning, yogini, so either she focused on the space-like meditation on emptiness, and then when she comes out of that, she focused on dependent rising, how everything depends on cause, condition, past, and mental labeling, right? And that person can go from that to the space of emptiness, but it takes quite an effort to go from one to the other. You know, you cannot switch back and forth quickly. It takes you a few seconds, let's say 10 seconds, for going from one space to the other. But as you become acquainted with these two meditation, you can go back and forth between the space and emptiness and being merely labeled in the conventional word of merely labeled quicker and quicker. So a bodhisattva, as he progresses, he can go from emptiness to dependence quicker, quicker. Right? So the progression comes on how quickly. Is not that the emptiness becomes different, is how quickly you can move from focusing on emptiness and then on dependent rising. So only a Buddha can have both simultaneously. Once you can see emptiness and dependent rising at the same moment with the same consciousness, then that's the state of Buddha. Before that, bodhisattva will always have to alternate between emptiness and dependent rising. Okay?
Thank you, Venerable.
And we have our next question from Shankar.
Follow up on, I think, Anne's question. So, if you experience, let's say, directly experience emptiness in meditative equipoise, so you're in space like emptiness meditation, let's say, and to come out of it and you go out in the world. So what you're saying is, in the first instant, it will appear to you as inherently existent, but if you're very good at the next instant, your consciousness will say, oh, okay, I know it's merely labeled to myself, right? So it's kind of like you correct yourself. Yeah, no, totally wrong. Okay.
Well, yes. You know, it's not wrong. You know, it's one way of looking at it. It's not wrong. There's another way. So you have soaked your mind into emptiness. Like, let's say you're with your partner and you're totally in love with that person, right? And then you leave that person, you walk out. Your mind is still imbued with that love. We say being in the love bubble, right? You know, it's an expression. Okay, being in that love bubble, everybody is rosy, you know, kind of like that. Okay, so it's same thing with emptiness. So you meditate on it, you're completely soaked in emptiness, and you come out, you're still in that bubble of emptiness. So to your sense consciousness, things appear inherently, but your mental consciousness, you're still in that emptiness bubble, right? And that emptiness bubble lasts for a while, right? And then gradually fades away, right? So yes, and then of course, then you can use the mind, the analysis, but at one level, you don't need analysis. It's just the leftover, the experience carries on, you know.
So it's kind of like when Rinpoche used to say, like, you know, when during breaks in a retreat, as you're walking down the path, just the trees are all illusory, like it's kind of like a dream. So that's the bubble feeling.
Yes. But then if one doesn't have that bubble feeling, one can make the exercise, everything is, you know, the way is merely labeled, trees is merely labeled, you know, one can then use the analytical approach, right?
Oh, thank you so much, Venerable. Any more questions online? Is there a hand up? Oh, I can't read. Oh, Amanda, hi, please unmute. Amanda, thank you.
Okay. Venerable, you were talking earlier about why dependent arising and emptiness were significant. I think that's right. And they're significant because if everything is a dependent arising and nothing exists inherently from its own side, it means it can be purified, which means there's hope.
Yes. Yes, there's
Yeah.
a lot of hope.
Which a whole lot of hope, which is kind of cheerful, I thought.
Yes, very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you to you. Okay, so now I would like to finish with giving you some homework. So tomorrow morning, I would like that we meditate on love, compassion, and bodhicitta. So, you know, there's two methods. The one that comes from Maitreya, which is called the 6 cause, 1 effect meditation. And then there's the second meditation comes from Manjushri, Shantideva, and so forth, which is the exchange of self for other. So I think most of you know these two the older student here know this meditation. So, and then there's another meditation, which is called the 11-point meditation on bodhicitta, which Lama Tsongkhapa made by combining both approach, right? So this 11 point is meditating on equalizing self with other, friend, enemy, stranger, seeing all beings as your mother, or, as being closely related to you, remembering their kindness, right? And then wishing to repay their kindness, and then the equality of self and other, how we all want to be happy, how we all the same, we all have Buddha potential, we all want to be happy, we don't want to suffer. So the equality of self and other. And then reflecting on the disadvantage of the self-centered attitude, how being self-centered, out of self-centeredness, we create all our negative karma, all our causes of suffering, and we prevent us from attaining liberation or enlightenment. And the advantage of cherishing other, of caring for other more than self. So how all the positive karma, all the temporal happiness, all the ultimate happiness comes from that mind that cares, that loves, that thinks about making other happy more than oneself. And then comes to the conclusion, the next meditation, see, because there's so much more advantage in cherishing other than self, therefore from now on, I will care more for other than myself. So there's the actual exchange of self for other, right? And then on that base, one does Tonglen, right? So on that base, one meditates sending love to, starting with one's partner, to all living beings, and then one changes the meditation, one focuses more on compassion. So one starts again with one's partner or one's child or parent, someone closer, and one takes away the suffering. And gradually one takes away the suffering, mental affliction, ignorance from all sentient being, right? And then later on, one puts that on the movement of the breath. When one exhales, one chants love, one inhale generates compassion. Okay, so that's the 9th point. And then the 10th point is to the actual determination, is how is it called? Somebody remembers the word? Universal aspiration? Huh? Universal responsibility. Okay, I like that term. Okay, universal responsibility. So that is the state of mindset, I, by myself alone, I will free all living beings. It's my responsibility to free out of love and compassion. I wish to free all living beings by myself alone. So all my friends, all my relatives, all the people in my country, all the humanity, all the animals, all the helping, all the spirit, all the devas, all the asuras, all living beings, I will lead to enlightenment, no matter how long it takes. So you soak your mind in that state of mind. I myself will lead all beings to enlightenment. And then out of that, realizing that at the moment you cannot do it, you aspire to become Buddha. So bodhicitta is by reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha. So you think about the Buddha's qualities, you know, so you meditate on how he has removed all the affliction, he has developed all the qualities, he has completed ethic, concentration, wisdom, you know, he has all the clairvoyances, he's omniscient. So you think about the Buddha's quality, and out of your determination to free all living beings, you aspire to become Buddha. You want to become Buddha. You act to become Buddha. And that state of mind is bodhicitta. So what I would like we to do tomorrow, so this applies here for the old student, and not the people which don't know this meditation. So I would like that each one of you, you choose one of the topic and you lead a meditation. You lead a 5-minute meditation on that topic, you know, and I will then say whether you reached the right, whether your meditation was correct or not. You know, whether, you know, because sometimes one meditates on a topic and then the mind goes all over the place, you know, instead of actually bringing us to the intended state of mind, you know, it goes off track. So I'll tell you whether your meditation led you to the right experience, led us to the right experience, or whether you went off track. Okay? So I think, you see, is good because sometimes one meditates for years and one thinks one meditation is correct, but one has no feedback, right? So it's good to have some feedback to know whether one's meditation is correct or not, right? And then also for all the other people is enriching because we hear it with a different vocabulary and different accent, different, you know, each one has still our own flavor, even though we do the same meditation, right? So it's nice. So that being said, so you can choose, you know, so who among you wants to take the meditation on equanimity, friend, enemy, and stranger? You know, please raise your hand. Who wants to take? Please, not all at the same time, right? So who wants to take that meditation? Okay. Jeff, does somebody write things down? You know, Nina, you write it down? Okay. Okay. So Jeff is going to lead us for 5 minutes. So he's going to start, you know, because he's the first meditation, right? So Jeff will do meditation, lead us to a meditation on equanimity. Who wants to lead us on a meditation of seeing all beings as one's mother, or as one's father, as one's partner, you know? So basically, since beginningless time, you know, we had all this interaction. And so, you know, in the Tibetan system, because the mind is beginningless, you know, and you had beginningless past life, so it's very possible that all beings have once been your mother, right? Because having infinite past life, you know, it could well be that they even say, you know, each being has been even 100 times your mother. You know, but that we don't have the clairvoyance to know whether it's true or not, or whether it's just a nice psychological mean, you know, to train our mind. Nevertheless, if you go along the stream of thought, it is very beneficial to the mind. So who wants to lead us to meditation, see all beings as one's mother and remembering the kindness of one's mother? Shankar. Okay. And then who wants to lead us to a meditation, which comes after what Shankar will tell us? You know, also the beings have not only been kind when they were our parents, but also in other circumstances. They have been our partner, our children, our boss. They have given us money, food, and blah, 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 blah. Right? So they've been kind to us in other circumstances. And then the wish to repay that kindness. Okay? Dondrup, with that meditation, have you? It was for asking a question, or was for taking a minute? I didn't want. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, then the next meditation is the equality of self and other, that we're all the same, we all want to be happy, we all don't want to suffer, all sentient beings, we're exactly the same. No, we all have Buddha nature, we all want to, if we can choose between a little happiness and great happiness, we will all choose great happiness. Right, so we're all equal in that sense. Who wants to lead that meditation? Mary, okay. Is that a question?
Venerable, I will most likely be on Zoom tomorrow. Will I be disqualified?
What does that mean, being on Zoom?
I'll be up there.
Aha, aha.
So maybe it might not be so beneficial, but I would be happy to lead if someone would.
Well, I mean, sometimes, you know, if you speak, if you have a good microphone, if one can hear you properly, then it's fine. But sometimes one doesn't hear so well. At least I don't hear so well when people speak. Yeah. Okay. So you think the quality will be good enough? I think she has quite a clear voice.
Maybe we need a backup. Shankar will be my backup. He'll do two. Shankar will be my backup. Yes, if I don't come through. I don't know. Equality of self and other.
Okay. 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 And then who wants to take the drawback of self-cherishing? You know, that all the negative karma, if you think about the 10 non-virtuous action, you always do the 10 non-virtuous action, mostly out of self-cherishing, right? And then we don't, you know, we're selfish and we create problems to others because we're selfish, right? And why we don't develop love, compassion, bodhicitta, why we don't progress on our path to enlightenment, why we don't become a Mahayana practitioner, why we don't become a bodhisattva, how we don't progress on the bodhisattva path, why we don't become enlightened, is because we're self-centered. Right? So who wants to lead that meditation? Erin? Okay, Erin, okay. Okay. Erin, the faults of self-cherishing. Okay. And then who wants to take the benefit of cherishing others? Okay, Julie? And then the next point is the exchange of self and other. So the conclusion you see of seeing the drawback of self-cherishing and the benefit of cherishing other is that one takes a determination to being more focused on the happiness of all living beings and less focus on the happiness of oneself. Whereas the normal mind is more focused on the happiness of me and less on the happiness of other. So here we create the determination from now on, I will cherish less myself and more other. So the purpose of my life is not to make this one person happy, is to make all living beings happy. That's the purpose of my life. And I am one and they are infinite in number. So it's more beneficial to benefit countless beings than just one. How much I'm happy? I'm just one. If I make other happy, they are countless. So this type of meditation. So there, we could count it as one meditation or simply as no, we can put it together with the mind that with Tonglen, right? So is this this awareness that is more important to cherish other than self, and because of that, now I send love to all living beings. I lead all beings to happiness, and have the compassion to take away the suffering. Who wants to do this tree? You want to do this tree? Okay, shall I? And then who wants to do the 10 and the 11? So how you called it?
Universal responsibility.
Yeah, so who wants to do the universal responsibility and bodhicitta? Somebody wants to take the one?
Okay.
You already have one, no?
No.
Oh, you don't have one. Oh, all right.
Just so everyone knows, Nina was hiding on Zoom.
She was hiding behind her pen. Okay. Okay, so tomorrow morning I make the motivation, and then one after the other, Nina would read their names, and then they will lead the meditation, and then I make a little comment, and then we move to the next, like that. Okay?
Some people's phone numbers I have, I'm gonna send WhatsApp of this in advance, so refer to it, you can use. And if I don't have your number, and you want me to send it to you, give me your number.
Okay, so let's conclude with a short meditation. So to enhance the positive karma we have created together, it's good to rejoice, feel happy in what one has done today, whatever positive thought, emotion we have cultivated, whatever state of mind we have induced, whatever new things we have learned, how feel happy and fortunate to have had this day of meditation, of speaking and thinking about spiritual progress. And may we able to experience more days like that in our life. And may we, next life again, being able to find teachers, sangha, spiritual community, and from our side, may we also have this interest for spiritual development again. And then may we gradually clean our obscuration and develop all the Buddha's qualities and become soon completely realized omniscient, reach that state that is effortless forever. And then we can spontaneously benefit all living beings forever. And then due to our merit, the merit of the bodhisattvas, the merit of the Buddhas and our gurus, and our own merit, so may we, our family member, our friends, and all living beings, being free of obstacle, free of sickness, free of negative emotion, and may we all develop all the qualities of enlightenment. And may all our spiritual teacher, like His Holiness Dalai Lama, have long life, remain in good health, and be able to benefit us for a long time. And may the reincarnation of Kyabje Sopa Rinpoche, our precious Guru, soon be recognized. And may he get the best education possible and manifest again like before as a fully enlightened being and benefiting beings like he used to do so in such an amazing way. And may all the Dharma center, like the center here, flourish. May many beings gain spiritual realization by coming to this center. And may the center be harmonious. People help each other. And may all the good conditions arise for all the FPMT centers to flourish in the same way. And may all other spiritual traditions, all other lineages that make better human beings, may they all flourish. And may the mental affliction in the mind of our politicians decrease, and may the quality of wisdom, love, and compassion increase. Okay, thank you very much. Good evening.